Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Man the Cannons, written by teller of tall tales. A human warship, the Kraken, floated listlessly. Her hull punctured and vented, her reactors overloaded, her crew slaughtered and frozen in the void. The ship's AI relived the last fight 100 times, remembering how her crew sang so beautifully until the end. As the AI sat in her black box, she felt a signal from a passing ship. And in that fleeting moment, she sent them all the information she could regarding her crew's last stand. Before retreating back into her technological coffin, she wished to rest amongst those that served her so loyally. Commander Sutton of the human trade vessel 969er received the footage of every angle of the Kraken's last stand. Respectfully, somberly, he watched. The Kraken's captain sat in his command chair, chatting amicably with one of his lieutenants when alarms began blaring. The captain stood stock still as he ordered the data from the long-range scanners be brought up. Dozens, no, hundreds of ships of various origin were dropping from hyperspace, all bearing a signal of the dread pirate Death's face. The captain ordered the shields raised and the alarms blared louder. He watched as small wormholes flashed open and shut, barely a second time to breathe before the kinetic slugs hit the shields at near light speeds. The ship shook and groaned as the captain glanced at his small feminine figure of the AI and the arm of his command chair. "Rose, patch my voice into the PA," the captain stated as the AI pulsed a gentle red and held forth a holographic microphone. As the ship took again, the captain cleared his throat. "Man the cannons, climb aboard together, weather every storm. Oh, man the cannons, climb aboard, they'll remember us forevermore." Even through the ship's thick metal decks, the voices of 100,000 humans could be heard picking up the chorus. In the cannon bays, the men worked in perfect rhythm, loading tungsten slugs into wormhole cannons. Even as the enemy shell-pierced shields and ripped into the bay, they continued, singing in almost perfect unison. Engineers swung from the coolant pipe to fuel pipe, like their arboreal ancestors, as they fixed and patched leaks, replacing and repairing valves. The engineers sang to the chorus even as the fires burst to life around them, only to be extinguished by deft hands covered in grease. The Kraken spit tungsten, vaporizing enemy ships in 1 and 2 hits, their exit wormholes opening just outside the enemy shields. The captain, crew, and all sang their death song with pride as the Kraken shields were finally breached by overwhelming fire. The captain let a tear fall as he saw the pirate flagship begin charging their main cannon. But he wouldn't let his voice falter as the ion cannon fired. "Man the cannons, climb aboard, they'll remember us forevermore." The ion beam sliced through the Kraken as a wall of flame, the interior camera following the wall of flame as it burned the air, the compression wave alone responsible for more deaths than the flame. In a second, the proud warship was hulking wreck. The AI screamed a silent lament for her crew as the pirates began to close in for the opportunity to loot. Then, the AI quietly broke as she overrode the manual controls for the Kraken's reactors, beginning to overload the reactor with fissile material. As the main body of the pirate fleet approached, then, as the AI began to retreat into the indestructible black box, reliving her crew's last stand, she left one message for the pirates in honor of her crew. "Man the cannons, climb aboard. You'll be remembered nevermore." As the pirates set foot on the Kraken, they barely had time to react as the fission reactors overloaded, creating a bright white star that shone for naught but a few seconds as it incinerated the closest ships, shrapnel piercing those that weren't. The AI rested after this moment, quiet as she let herself shut down for hibernation. End of story. Story number 2. Meta-Human, written by Neil Lithi. Salk sat hunched over his drink as the fresh-faced graduates cheered themselves in the bar, each one boasting of the foes that they would face in best. Eventually, they realized the old veteran was there and surrounded him like cubs. "Scarred one, you have been out in the hegemony. What glories you must have earned." Salk lifted his one good eye to look the group over, rubbing a hand over his scarred face to flatten his fur again. "No glory. I run with my pack, and I learned fear." The cub's ears flattened, one scoffed. "So you are a coward. You have no pride in your war wounds. You sound weak." The final word coming as a squeal as Salk lifted the boy to glare at his muzzle to muzzle. "I served with the Bloodborne. I was there for the final battle. I know more fighting than your entire brood." Dropping the boy, he downed his drink as though to drown a memory. "You were there. He must know what happened. Admiral Class burned his way across 100 systems, enslaved millions. Then he just stopped." Salk nodded to them. "Oh, true. Worlds of weak beings, no better than cattle to the pack masters. 100 worlds, colony and home worlds alike. He cut down fleets and shattered armies. Then he would parade before the survivors and dare any of the weak to challenge. Or in his opinion, they were all weak." The young looked to him for more, and he almost wept. It was a small, isolated system, just a refueling station for the whole place. The few ships to resist were swatted like flying insects. There was no army. The main residents were Urong, the one evolved from burrowing prey with long ears. But others were amongst them. The Urong had gathered everyone in the dining area to surrender. Class stalked before them. "In my opinion, you lot are not worthy of being called people," he began. He did not have the time to issue his challenge before one of the aliens had been passing through, slashed his eye with a spoon. A spoon! Half blinded, he staggered back, and all of us smelled the blood fury of the human and the fear of the Packmaster. I will never forget that human's words. The cadet stared at him, waiting. Wolves do not bother themselves with the opinions of sheep. End of story. Story number 3. They're little more than simple robots. Written by Dragonson04. "Sergeant, please explain," the feathery Liston general said, rather haltingly. "Explain what exactly?" Sergeant Nakamura said, rather confused. "Why is there a 50-foot tall robot standing in what appears to be a custom-made rig on my base?" "Oh, that is Impulse, a mech made on Earth, disassembled and then sent here on 3 ships. "Why is it on my base?" The fight is getting more and more centered on the ground on this planet, sir. Impulse and her sisters, Bolt and Phase, who will be arriving any day, should be what we need to finally break through the stalemate," the sergeant explained. "You should have received the orders last week sometime, unless you thought that it was a prank." It was true. The general had indeed received the orders that 3 mechs from Earth would be arriving on the base, along with their full support crews and their cradle rigs. But on looking up the term mech, the general thought that it was indeed a prank. There were toys, animated entertainment for young humans, tiny polymer models to assemble and paint, not 50-foot tall colossi standing in my base. "What is the purpose?" the general questioned. "Well, based on our mutual research agreement, they show what can be achieved when our peoples work together. They are, we're calling them Heavy Infantry Support Tactical Oversight Recon Engines, or Project Histor for now. Impulse is the Heavy, armed with Terran kinetic weapons measuring in the 20mm range, including a back-mounted gun we simply call Gustav. that fires 80-centimeter spicy meatball rounds. Volt is our runner, likely armed with Liston energy-based weapons, and Phase is our all-rounder. Heavier stuff than Volt, but lighter than Impulse, and a mix of Terran and Liston armaments. Volt has the advantage of speed boost with the rocket boots upgrade. We jokingly call them, and is capable of running at about 40 miles per hour over level ground. And Phase includes a chain gun version of the Liston plasma defense turrets in both knees, and our own railguns in the arms. What little skin the general showed through his feathers was rapidly losing color. All have the armor they need, and all have cold fusion reactors for power. Each sits 2 pilots, both seats are in the head, behind the thickest armor plating. In each case the Liston and a human, one to drive and one to pull the triggers. 2 guesses on what the human pilots want to do.
No. What is the purpose of them being giant robots?
The general screamed. Shh! She might hear you. The onboard AI is a touch sensitive to mean words. These are mechs, sir, not robots.
Why?
The general was rather flabbergasted and couldn't find the words. An onboard AI is essential. The AI runs most of the targeting systems and electronic warfare suites, and also updates both pilots on any battlefield conditions and the general state of the mech itself. Too many details for the brain made of meat. The initial design philosophy was based on a human popular culture, but to humans, there seems to be a born love for giant mechanical things. I honestly have no idea where it came from, but there is a certain romanticism to being able to stride across a battlefield and fight from the perspective of a giant or maybe a god. As for why they are the way they are, there is a human saying I am fond of. It goes, you ask why, I ask, why not? End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Parky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.